Say it again. Yay presents.
Yay presents.
Yay presents.
Why are you hitting me? Why are you fighting me?
Welcome to Chatting with Casey with your host, Casey Palmer. Episode 11, Don't Be Afraid of the Doula. Welcome to Chatting with Casey, the podcast that's all about family, food, fashion, and faith, and travel, and tech, and unexpected home births because things don't always go according to plan. It was January 2016 and Sarah warned me to get my sleep because our baby was 4 days late and could turn up any day. And tensions were high. My brother just had a son 6 weeks early, effectively stealing our due date. I had the bright idea of starting a Black History Month series with a baby on the way, and I was still putting 100 to-dos on my shoulders as I usually did each year. If you've never gotten ready for a baby that was imminently on the way, believe me, this is not the way you do it. But there I was, sleep-deprived and overworked, and then it happened. Contractions. The baby was coming, and it was time for me to step up and be my wife's birthing partner so we could welcome some new life into the world. And we were doing things a bit differently this time. We had a midwife who'd been walking with Sarah through her pregnancy and would be on call for, when that little guy decided to finally make his debut. And so our midwife showed up a little while after our call, and despite the hospital being 5 minutes up the street with a private room to deliver in, all signs pointed to this baby showing up at any moment. So we thought it better to stay and have the baby at home than to risk further complications by taking the short trek up. Yeah, nope. What we thought would be minutes turned out to be hours, and after 27 hours awake and a mighty effort from Sarah, we welcomed the fourth Palmer into the world, and we couldn't have done it without our midwife. I'll let Rhiannon explain it for herself, but doulas are representative of our desire to move away from the overly clinical approach of the hospital delivery room and build a more intimate relationship with the people who will see us at our most vulnerable. I actually got connected with Rhiannon through Alex Smith, who had produced both the rewatchability episode I'd been on, rest in peace Mufasa, and the episode of Sam Kemp Jackson's Parenting Then and Now, which is still her most listened to episode, so make sure you check it out. Link is in the show notes. A big thank you to Alex for making this happen. It's taken me a bit to get this episode up and running, but I think it's time to finally introduce you to Rhiannon Langford, the brains behind Birth Boss Maternity Care, which helps families feel empowered during their transition to parenthood. Let's check it out. So hello everyone, we're here with Rhiannon Langford, who that's a name that far predates Rihanna, just so everyone knows. I'm sure she gets this all the time. I want to get that out of the way as quickly as possible because, as we know, dad jokes are part of my being in essence. So, yes, she is what you would call a doula, a master of doulas, the doula of doulas. So something along those lines. And I find it interesting that we're in this conversation for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm a dad, and I know dads and doulas don't often intersect in people's minds when it comes down to the two worlds of influential figures in babies' lives, as well as the fact that we had a doula for our second child, his birth, and it was a very long, twisted, and unexpected story, but I'm not going to delay you hearing Rhiannon much longer, and we'll get into that later. So, Rhiannon, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I am good, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm super happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Why don't you tell everyone a bit about what you do, who you are, and who you represent?
Absolutely. So as you said, my name is Rhiannon and I'm a doula. I got into this work in kind of a different way than most doulas. A lot of people get into this work when they've had their own kind of negative birth experience. But I don't have any kids myself. And so a lot of people are like, how did you get into this? And I just am really passionate about maternal health and helping families. I was working on a project in the UK, and it was a maternal mental health documentary with the BBC.
Ooh.
And I come from like a nonprofit background, and so I would go around and do different projects like that. And I kind of just had this huge light bulb moment when I was interviewing all these people for the show, and they were sharing these stories. And I was just like, this is absolute garbage that people are getting this treatment, and like the maternal health rates and the death rates that are in this first world country. It's ridiculous. And so I wanted to see what I could do. So I went back to school and I studied maternal health and bioethics at Columbia and did some post-grad work there. And I realized that I didn't have to be in the medical sector directly to make a difference with these people. I discovered what doulas did and like the actual evidence-based research about how they benefit maternal health outcomes, and I felt really called to that kind of work. So I run my own business. I'm founder of Birth Boss Maternity Care, and I provide doula support to families and birthing people as they transition to that next stage of life all across Toronto and the Hamilton area.
Okay.
That's me.
Very cool. Well, tell us more about what a doula does, only because I can kind of see those light bulbs, not light bulbs, I see, I guess, red flags, if you will, going off for people who every time they hear vegan, naturopath, or anything that doesn't have to deal with like the super traditional path of medicine and how things work, they get kind of weirded out and unsure. So tell us, what does a doula do?
Yeah, so I think when people hear the word doula, they're often like, you walk around in a caftan, like having sage in like the hospital room. That's not what I do. I mean, some people, if you want to hire,
right?
Yeah, that's what you want. Like there are doulas that will do that, but that's not what I'm about at all. For me, a doula is someone that provides support to people during life's major transitions, especially when you become a parent. Like I think that's one of the biggest life transitions of all. But there's also like death doulas, and there's different types of doulas that can help you transition through those big life stages. And so what it means when you're supporting someone is that it's informational support. So you're providing evidence-based research when people have questions about is this intervention something I want to do? It's not my place to say, oh, like you have to not have a C-section or whatever it is. It's my job to say, here's all the evidence and make a decision that works for you. It's not about me imposing my own crunchy beliefs on someone else, as some people might be afraid of. But that informational support is also providing different resources. And if they say, I really want to reach out to acupuncture or something like that, connecting them with local professionals that I trust and have a good referral network with. It's also physical support. So in labor, when it's things are really stressful and pain is happening.
So I've heard.
As you've seen, I'm sure. So that physical support is like providing like manual comfort measures. I'm not going to do any sort of medicine. That's not my job. I'm not a doctor. But there are some sort of time-tested techniques that can help with alleviating pain, like stretches and different types of positions that I can help a partner do as well with the birthing person. So if you don't want me to get up in your grill and like and like actually do those positions with you, I can help guide you through that with your partner or by yourself. And then it's also emotional support. And so I think that's what people often think of when they hear a doula. And so I'm not just going to be high-fiving you through your birth and saying, you can do this, like, just be calm. Like, that's not what emotional support is to me. It's hearing you when you're saying, I don't think I can do this, and saying, that's okay. It's totally normal to feel that way, and just holding space for people in times where they don't feel confident with themselves and listening to them, and just providing different ways of thinking, but also acknowledging that where they are in that moment is totally fine too.
For sure. Well, I think what a lot of new parents take, like maybe not take for granted, but what they don't consider is the fact that pregnancy, the entire path of pregnancy, is probably one of the most individual paths and unique paths to an individual that you'll find in life, right? Just as, parenting the kids afterward for the years and years you'll be doing that is going to be completely different. You'll be comparing notes with other parents and things like that as you go through it to try and figure out what works for you. But everyone's pregnancy affects their body in different ways, affects their relationships and things around them in different ways. Everyone's going to want different things for their pregnancies and how they go about it, whether you want a water birth, whether you want to be in a hospital, whether you want to be at home, whether it's kind of things you want in your kit, the kind of people you want around you, all that kind of stuff. I almost see the doula as being like the wedding planner.
Absolutely.
Wedding, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of along the same line of thinking for me, where it's like you almost need not an impartial third party, but at least someone who's just outside of it enough to like just say, hey, maybe you want to do this, or I know you wanted this, how about we do this, and things like that. And I think it's really key to have that. It goes back to the entire village idea that we've kind of threw out the window and said, let's just go all clinical with it. Instead, it was like, no, there's value to having other people around who are also invested in making sure your baby comes out okay.
100%. Like, I feel like in this day and age when there's so much information on the internet, you don't really know how to filter through that. Having someone who like speaks the language of parenting and birth, being able to translate it for your specific situation is really helpful. And especially since, as you mentioned, like we don't have that village mentality anymore. And so if you're in a position where you can bring in that resource when most people are isolated from their families and like live far away, and their friends, if they're coming over to help, they're taking pictures of their baby for Instagram, like they're not actually there to help raise a child, and so doing it by yourself, especially when you're recovering from giving birth and your partner is also going to be exhausted and sleep deprived. Like, it's not normal in the whole context of the world for only 1 to 2 people to be raising a baby and recovering at the same time. And so having someone to help support that transition and say, it's okay that you're tired and there are things you can do. Have a nap. I'll look after your baby for an hour as you shower, do what you need to do. Like, having that extra support, I think, is really valuable to people when they're overwhelmed, and knowing that it's normal to feel that way is also really helpful too. Right.
So I'm just trying to wrap my head around a couple of things here. So then, okay. So there's the doula as a supportive, I guess, are some doulas also like midwives, like they've gone through midwifery and they kind of like have an overlap between the two of them? Or
I think some midwives start as doulas, but there's definitely like a difference when it comes to who's providing medical care versus who's providing direct support to the parents. Right. So midwifery is like someone that will actually deliver your baby for you, and they'll be the one that's checking your vital signs and doing kind of the scientific side of things. And the end of the day, they're focused on making sure that the baby is delivered safely. Whereas the doula, the priority is on the birthing person and their partner. Okay. And so I kind of think of things like I do everything waist up and they do everything waist down, basically. So doulas and midwives can work together too. But as a non-medical professional, I'm not going to be the one that's saying, oh, like, let me stitch you up afterwards. You know, like, that's not my place. Cool. But I love working with midwives. Like, I think it's awesome that you can like work together in any sort of birthing environment. If it's like a midwifery situation, you like, awesome. If you want an OB at a hospital, awesome. Like, doulas can support any kind of outcome. I was just wondering because our doula delivered our second kid. Now I have questions. So now I'm just kind of like, I might have to go review my facts. But. Right. Okay. Interesting. I mean, it can happen. I think if you want to have like an unassisted, like free birth kind of thing. There's no want. It just happened? Yeah. Okay. Maybe. But I mean, it's better than to give someone who knows and who's been in that situation before, probably. But I mean, you're not paying for doula to be the baby catcher kind of thing. But I mean, if it worked for you, like that seems kind if it's unexpected. I don't know. Worked is the right word. It was kind of it was just timing between. So, okay, I should just preface the story with like how it all came down. So, it's one of those stories where you file under Casey's an idiot. Oh, no. And so, I don't sleep really well in general because I work a lot and I keep busy. So, it was around like 1-ish in the morning and I'd probably been up since
6 that morning because we had our first kid already. So
Right.
I'd been up the course of the day, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a few hours sleep, and it's gonna be good. We're gonna get up and take care of this and everything. And our second kid was already like a few days late by that point. So Sarah's like, no, sleep while you can because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Get some rest. I'm like, yeah. I'm just gonna finish up this one thing. I'm gonna get some rest. It's gonna be great. And then I was gonna go to sleep, and she's like, "So contractions are starting," and I was like, "Oh, this was poorly planned." So she called our doula, like we're gonna get everything ready, had our go bag so we can get up to the hospital, which is literally a 5-minute drive from our house, which is the most hilarious part of the story. It's a 5-minute drive from our house. So we were getting ready for her to come over. She had to finish up with something else and coming over, and then she showed up and everything. And we were kind of like trying to figure out, where Sarah was at and everything. And she's like, we figured, it'll probably be like another hour and a bit by the time we'd gone through like where she was and how much she was dilated. And we're like, okay, we're just going to go. It's like we can go up the road a few minutes and get this done and do it there. But it's like, or if you think it's not going to be long, we can stay here and get it done here. And so we stayed. And so it took like 4 more hours. It was a long time. And so like, yeah, I was, helping, hold legs up and everything and helping support while trying not to pass out. By the time our second kid was born, I think I'd been up 27 hours straight.
Oh my goodness.
And I just passed out because, they're like, okay, the baby's out. Just done. You're done. And she made coffee for Sarah and everything like that. Like, she was amazing. Like, I have only amazing words for our doula. I just know I was the dumb one in the situation. But our baby came out okay. And now he's 2.5. And now he has emotions and all these other things that I'm dealing with. But that's a separate story for another time.
That's wild. That's absolutely crazy. But I feel like you've experienced both worlds now.
Yeah.
You're going to be an expert in the field,
Oh,
right?
Yeah. So. Two ends of it, right? Our first was very clinical because he had to be induced, so we knew the time, we knew the date. We went to the hospital, started the procedure, went home, went back, and he came out and came into the world where it's like, oh, this is what it's like to have a baby. Right. And then the second time we're like, we didn't know anything. Everything is insane. What is going on? So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story. That's
Thanks.
super wild. But I mean, everything worked out, but I think it goes to show that there are so many avenues
100%.
for whatever birth experience that you want, or unexpectedly, even if you don't want it and it happens to you. There's so many different outcomes, and having someone that knows that it's not an emergency, this is a total normal thing that people have been doing for thousands of years, and
exactly.
we don't need to always panic, and that's not, unless it's a medical emergency, and then you escalate it. But if it's a normal thing, it can totally happen in your home, and partners can be absolutely a part of the whole birthing process too. So that's super interesting.
Yeah. And on a side note, if you ever want to know how cold-blooded a human being can get, introduce a 2-year-old kid to their younger sibling. Honestly, it was the most hilarious thing. He's sitting there with Sarah's parents had come over to watch him, and he somehow slept through the entire birthing process.
Impressive.
Through all the we had his bedroom door closed in the bedroom, which was 30 feet away, and had our bedroom door closed so we wouldn't wake him and everything. And through all the groans and agony and everything, he slept through it all. And so he was 2 years old. Sarah's parents were over to watch him when he woke up. And when we had our second come out, he was in the kitchen having breakfast. He was sitting, nibbling on a piece of toast. We're like, hey, here's your new little brother. Check him out. Looked over, went back to his toast, kept eating, and we're like, whoa.
Oh my goodness.
They're best friends now.
Hilarious.
This is wedding and 30th birthday material down the road. I am saving up.
For sure.
I have photos and stories and everything. It's going to be horrible.
It's going to be a savage slideshow coming up.
The most savage of fathers.
Well, that means you're a good parent.
So, what else goes into your world when you're not doula-ing it up? That's not a verb, but I'm going to go with it.
I use it as a verb all the time.
Really?
I mean, because there's no great verb other than doula-ing, so throw a hyphen in there. It's a word.
Or you can just say dueling. No, that's already a thing.
Yeah,
Dueling.
I don't want to seem like I'm fighting someone in a duel.
You're fighting injustice. No, that's another. Okay, you know what?
That's a different side of things. Yeah, I'm dueling maternal injustice. No, that's not what I do. But In some sorts of context, I mean, I definitely take an interest in the whole activism side of like birth justice and maternal health. And so a big part of that is like always learning. Like as we're talking about, like there's so many different things that could happen.
Right.
And I don't think you can like take one course and then you know everything about being a doula and being a part of like the birthing sector. And so I'm always taking different courses in different types of like pain relief or different types of how to like comfort families and like not a therapist or anything, but I find it really interesting about how people connect in relationships as they transition to this next stage. And so a big part of how I like acknowledge my clients is like, how do I nurture your relationship? And so I want to make sure I'm coming not from a place of being like super just birth focused. Like I want to focus on parents as being people. And so the more I can learn, the more I can help. And so I feel great about that. And also just being a business owner is like a whole new side of things. I mean, like I love what I do and getting to work with clients, but I also really enjoy getting to like make my own schedule, even though birth happens not on your schedule, but it's still like I really enjoy the whole like social media side of things and like learning about that. I've always like loved school and I love learning, and so I feel like this is like a really interesting career path for me because it's always about growth and always learning something new. And I also like I love connecting with other people. I like that I have the flexibility to support my friends in their own life's transitions and not be behind a desk 9 to 5. Yeah, I mean, I had that 9 to 5 experience and it like works for some people and I found what works for me, and that's not what works for me. So
I don't know if 9 to 5 works for a lot of people. I think people try to make it work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would just like see how like drained people would get and like they were like living for the weekends. And
well, life doesn't shape itself around the 9 to 5 anymore
100%.
in any way whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Especially, I was going to say especially as a parent, but really for a lot, anyone almost.
Absolutely.
It's almost impossible to make it work these days just because, you know, there's just so much happening. And whether it's you're trying to do things so that you don't have to deal with the rush hour commuting, whether it's trying to be somewhere on time, whether it's trying to still find time to make those interactions and those, you know, interrelational things happen with other people. Like trying to work around this structure of like, you know, 8 hours at a desk, let's tack another hour and a half on top of that for commuting each way. And by the time you get like, you know, time to shower, time to eat, time to sleep and everything, it's kind of like taking all the prime time away from living the best life you can.
Absolutely. And like, it's so formulaic, I find. And like, I mean, some people really value having that kind of structure in their lives and they thrive in that kind of environment. I do not. And so, but I feel like that's why I'm like even more appreciative to be in like the type of work that I am, because I've had the experience of like working behind a desk and doing the 9 to 5 hustle and like feeling how soul crushing it is, even though like I was working in nonprofits and I really loved the causes I was supporting, but just like the structure of being at a desk and being like working on an Excel spreadsheet for 3 hours, even though I probably could do it in half an hour because like I have to be there until 5 o'clock. And now I get to like be really efficient in what I do. And when I'm actually spending time with people, I'm not feeling like I have to make it rush in a weekend and pack everything in. I can like actually enjoy and where I am in the moment and be present. And I feel like that's like something I can like have in my like friends in my day-to-day life, but also like in my business and like being with like clients, like being fully present in the moment, I think is something that like is very hard to do when you're doing the 9 to 5 hustle.
Sure. But part of what's happened, the more I've gotten to write about being a dad and parenting stories and things like that, and as I travel from coast to coast and meet more professionals in the field, especially women, is that you build a real community around what you do. And I've found sleep consultants who've like have lifelong friends they've made after doing 10 to 15 years of their business. I've found mom/life coaches who, you know, they have deep woven in relationships with women whose lives they've turned around because they are going so deep down a path they didn't want to be going down, whether it was due to postpartum depression, whether it was to self-doubt due to maybe they don't feel like they're measuring up compared to other moms and things like that. And yeah, I kind of feel like you sounds like, from what you're doing and the way you're going about doing things, that's what you're fostering around you with everyone you're working with and supporting.
Yeah, I think especially in Toronto and in big cities, everyone feels
cold Toronto.
Yeah, I feel like it's really isolating, especially when I work with a lot of younger parents who don't have a lot of parent friends yet.
For sure.
And they're the first ones in their friend groups to have this experience. And so being able to connect with another person on a human level and say it's totally normal what you're going through, and being able to connect and foster that sense of community is a huge thing when you're transitioning to this next phase.
For sure.
And postpartum, mood and anxiety disorders are really common. I think the stats are 1 in 4 people, not just the birthing person, but their partners too, will experience those feelings after the kid comes into their lives, and they don't know how to deal with that. But having a sense of community is one of the most important things, and having a plan to not necessarily avoid it, but if you are feeling those things, you have a community to feel solidarity with. And I think it's human connection, right?
Yeah.
It's so important, even from parenting to anything else in your life. It really makes a difference in how you get joy from everything. And I think the parenting journey can be tiring and exhausting, and it's not all cute Instagram pictures all the time. And they say how much they love you. It's really hard. And so having a community that you can share your stories and be honest with is hugely important. And I love getting to connect with people in that time of their lives, and also connect my clients to other clients and foster a community and refer them to parenting groups and whatnot.
For sure.
Because I find really rewarding.
Awesome. So how did you get over the hump of starting your own business? Because I find that one of the biggest misconceptions about starting a business is that it's really, really hard. When it's really, really not. I don't know if there's one central guide that's being here's starting a business in Canada 101, but it's not really that many steps at all.
I feel it's so however you want to do it, just do it. You know, I think the hardest thing is getting the confidence to say that I'm enough to make this work.
Yep.
And I come from a very academic valued family. Most of my aunts and uncles are all doctors and lawyers and that kind of stuff. And so I always saw myself going into a more professional route. And then so when I had that corporate job, it just wasn't for me. And then my sister is actually a wedding photographer, and she started her own business. And I felt really inspired seeing how happy she is in her life and creating that structure. And when I saw that you can succeed outside of that environment, it definitely gave me the motivation to follow my dreams and do my own thing.
Very cool.
And then, and so starting my own business, just getting over that hump of saying can I tell people that this is what I want to do? And I was weirdly embarrassed about it for a really long time, and saying being this is what I love. Why am I embarrassed about it?
Right.
And getting to that stage where I'm I love what I do. I feel I'm making a difference. Why am I so weird about this?
Right, for sure.
And so, actually getting the confidence to share it on my Facebook page is is the biggest hump that I had to get over. And the business side of stuff, it just comes naturally when you're doing what you actually like.
Yep.
And I kind of find it fun to learn about different, social media algorithms and finances. I hated math growing up. Who knew that this would be something I enjoy? But when it's furthering your business goals, it's easy to learn when you care about what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah. No, it's just I found, and you're right, I've been at this about 8 years now, and it's gone from this entire I'm going to do this as a hobby and it's going to be great, to the other day I'm oh, okay, I'm going, I had to log in on my Canada Revenue Agency profile, my business number, and like start tacking things on. I'm like, okay, I have to start organizing all this stuff and go talk to my accountant about this stuff. And I'm like, when did this become so grown up? I'm so confused.
I mean, like, there's so many things that you don't think about when you're starting a business.
For sure.
You're like, you think about the service you provide, or like the core of your business, and you don't really think about having to file for a business number and insurance and those kind of things.
Right.
But I mean, it's when it's doing something you love, I mean, I'm willing to put up with working with a spreadsheet when it's for a better cause.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So what do you get up to when you're not in doula mode? I'm sure that you're, doula mode 24/7, but I'm sure there are other sides to Rhiannon that are not just Rhiannon, was it Birth Boss?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a Gemini, so I like to have like different sides to me. I mean, I don't think it's healthy or normal just to be like, this is my one thing that I do. I think like people really thrive when they put their hands in a bunch of different pots.
Sure.
And so I'm a creative person.
Okay.
And so I grew up doing musical theater. And so it's something that I really liked in my adult life is to like give back to like local community theaters. And so I direct musicals and I'm stage manage and I do that on the side too.
Very interesting. Okay.
And I feel like that like feeds my like creative spirit, so I really like to do that. I like to babysit my sister's dog a lot. We hang out, and I love that. Her name's Winnie. She's super cute.
Very cool.
Yeah, I really like the outdoors and hiking and seeing nature, and I really like to connect with other like professionals and like networking. And even though it sounds very formal,
cool.
I love that. And just I think like fostering my like community and my network. Be it with like my friends, I like spend a lot of time like fostering those relationships because like I feel like self-care when you're doing like overnight work and like this kind of stuff is really important. And so
very cool.
I get to design the life that I have, which is really nice. I like that.
It's where we are now. Like it's at a point where our lives are under attack is such a strong phrase, but kind of is. Like with the way social media has evolved and the way things have really structured themselves in our world, we've neglected mental health for so long now that now we're seeing, all this stuff we've created might be having really bad impacts on everything we have going on. And so now we've learned that there's no one-size-fit-all solution for all the things we want out of our lives, and the entire, typical American dream, or pick a fence, or however you want to phrase it, is not the solution for everyone. And now that we're starting to understand that, we're trying to figure out, what are the tools and techniques to get us where we want to get to on an individual and also as a group basis. And I think you're, saying all the things that are the things that we need to be doing. Everyone kind of needs to figure out what drives them, what gives them the reason to get out of bed in the morning, what gives them the reason to strive for something 5 years from now. It's going to be a different answer for everyone, and it's good that you're found things that have worked for you.
Thank you. I mean, like, I just really love what I do, obviously, and but getting to help people, even if it's not like a career change, but seeing that they actually love their children and having that awakening to that new part of their lives too, I find super fulfilling. And helping people become their best selves is, I think, something that everyone wants to do in some sort of way. And I get to make my difference in this really niche parenting industry. But I'm so happy to see people realize their true potentials and become who they're meant to be in any sort of form.
So, interesting aside for a moment, I've kind of had my mind enlightened a bit towards the entire concept of musical theater recently.
Okay.
So, the couple who put together Come From Away, they used to live in our neighborhood. So
very cool.
A few years back, we used to meet them up at the playground here and there, and our kids would play together and stuff like that. And we talked to them a little bit. We're working on this thing, and they talked to us about it. And then we're like, okay. A couple years later, they're like, wait, what? What is this? We saw it in the paper. We're like, okay. So that's what got us to go check out Come From Away. Amazing.
So great.
So good.
I love that.
And because of that, now I'm kind of and I looked at the audience and everything. I'm like, we are really, really young in this crowd. It is a super unappreciated art form by our age category. And I'm like, this might need to change.
It seems really sad when you like look into the audiences of a Mervish show and you see like it's often like that senior demographic.
The sea of silver.
100%, 100%. And it's expensive.
It is.
And there's really great initiatives out there for like student rush tickets and whatnot, but it's not that accessible for a lot of people.
Right.
And they're not introduced to it when they're young, and they would rather spend their money going to a hockey game or something that they've been exposed to. And it makes me sad. And so I'm always like trying to get my friends to come see my shows and like make them fall in love with it. And like maybe you'll pass this on to your friends. And it's I think appreciating the arts is super important, especially in like a city like Toronto. Where there's so much, right? Yeah.
Like everyone thinks of New York, and you know, it's something that's just so tied into Times Square culture and Broadway culture more specifically. But people don't really understand how big a scene there is in Toronto. It is massive.
It's absolutely huge. And we have a really amazing Fringe Festival. We have really great theater spaces. And if you aren't like comfortable forking out for a $100 ticket in a professional theater, there's lots of really great community, like people that are volunteering their times to make art because that's what feeds them. And like there's so many ways to access art in this city, but it's finding people that are interested and like, selling tickets to that is something that I think a lot of artists struggle with.
Well, I used to be more of a visual artist, so I drew a lot of comics when I was younger. So I would go to comic conventions and sell my art there along with friends. And this was about, I'd have to say, probably like 17, 18 years ago is when I started, up till about, like, it was about a 5-6 year span. That was what I thought I'd be doing my entire life before things kind of shifted in another direction. So I remember a lot of, you know, you put all this time, love, and effort into putting together your craft, and then you're at a table and people are trying to haggle you down to like $2 for something that took you 20 hours to put together. And so now I'm like deep on the other end of my life here. Not other end of my life. I'm planning to be alive for quite a number of years yet. But it's been a couple decades since I started that journey. And I can see kind of like where that's at and like how underappreciated and how much like the perception of that world has not grown in proportion with how people's ideas and tools and techniques and what they're using to build out their ideas has grown so massively over the time because, you know, with people's exposures to the internet and whatnot, people are being inspired by so many different things now, and things are just coming out of that would not have existed 20 years before. And I'm just kind of like, there's just so much in the city. Like, I just don't think, you know, I don't know if it's going to be me, or it was going to be me flapping my mouth off to someone else. But I feel like there has to be this renaissance or this movement for people to really see like, hey, here's a side of Toronto that you just don't see whatsoever because you're not looking for it, but it is there.
Totally. I think it's like really hard when people are living their like 9-to-5 life or whatever, you know, and like supporting the arts isn't the top of their list. But I think being a part of the space that you're in, and Toronto has like so much to offer, be it the foodie scene we have here, the arts and culture scene we have here. Like there's so much to really dig your teeth into. And like I am always inspired when actually like leaving my house in the winter is an effort. I get it. But like, surviving the streetcar in Toronto in December is an effort, but it's so worth it because you leave feeling revived, right? And I think everyone fills their cup up in different ways. And like I'm a big advocate for self-care, and one of those things for me is like leaving my house and like finding inspiration and actually like supporting the arts, be it behind the scenes or going out and seeing someone else. Like that's something that fills my cup back up. And so whatever it is that fills your cup, do it.
For sure.
But I hope more people realize that how arts and culture can really be a form of self-care. Like it doesn't have to be face masks and bubble baths all the time, you know, like it's doing stuff that you love and what makes you feel good. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my kids are 4.5 and 2.5 right now. So, and one important lesson I learned this summer is that it doesn't take a ton of money to make your children happy. We just did a staycation last week and we took them out to Centerville, Wonderland, the ROM, Science Center, the aquarium.
Oh my
goodness. That might have been it. It was a busy week.
Wild.
I feel like there's one more, but I'm not going to remember it right now. And then my elder son's favorite day was the one he went 5 minutes down the street with my wife to the park and the local pool and played all day out there and not having to spend a dime on anything else. Like, he just was able to be in his own element with, you know, his friends would randomly appear here and there, and that was like his best day. And I was just like, all right, we're doing next summer differently. So next summer, I'm going to have a 5.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and I think it's going to be at, you know, my area of comfort where I can finally be like, hey, how about we go see a quick play or something? Or how about we just go do something low-key somewhere in the city and not do any of this big splashy stuff? Just kind of like check out more cultural stuff, because we've had them in the museums, we have them in the art galleries and stuff, and they're just not old enough yet to really, you know, go and look at something from like the 16th century and be like, what do you feel? How does it make you feel? What emotions do you feel looking at this piece of art?
Understandable.
But watching things interact on stage, I just saw like there's tickets for the Very Hungry Caterpillar on stage and stuff like that. And there's enough shows out there that are catered to kids that aren't just like, you know, the Wiggles live or stuff like that are very, I won't call it pandering, but it's just like not everything has to be a child sing-along. There could be things that have more depth and more story to them than just like, you know, here's like quick situation, 5-minute resolution, boom, 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 boom. It's like, no, here's this entire like arc of a story that you can get into. And I think that's what I want to start exposing them to starting next summer. And I think I just realized that. So thank you.
Anytime. Like, I remember when I was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's like one of like my like really strongest, earliest memories is my parents brought me to see Beauty and the Beast when I was in Toronto.
There you go.
I was just so inspired, and I was like, I want to read all the books now. I want to be like Belle, and like I stayed awake until 11 o'clock, which was impressive because I was like so into it. And I feel like, I don't know, like giving your kids the opportunity to see if this environment is something that they can do, like it really could inspire them and wake them up. And there are so many great kid shows in Toronto all the time, and be it the Very Hungry Caterpillar or whatever type of like Toronto Young People's Theater, like those kind of things. Like there's lots of different ways to access the arts with a family. And so I really encourage people to like go out and experience the city and do what they can. For sure.
Well, there's a lot that people don't think about when it comes down to what comes together to come up with a musical, for example. So once you start looking into it, you start to understand from the viewpoint of a child, there's so much more they're probably interacting with than you might as an old, jaded adult. Because 100%. There's set design, there's music, there's the choreography, there's all the interactions between the people and everything around them. And your kids will come with like a very different interaction with that media than you did. Like you'll get it, it's like, oh, well, then this happened, then this happened. Like if you're not looking for things, you might just get the plot. Or you might remember 1 or 2 songs. You might remember a character's name and their storyline, but then you might not notice that one little piece of the stage was revolving and reflecting different parts of the plot, the entire storyline, and the kids would talk about it and be like, hey, was doing what?
Sorry, I missed that. What? Yeah, well, like, I think kids, like, their imaginations are so wonderful, and they really feel transformed in that environment if it's a good piece of theater, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, the theater group that I grew up performing with, we would always give, like, a block of tickets to, like, a local charity group. And I remember we were doing Peter Pan and I was Wendy, and we gave like 50 tickets away to like a local bereavement society.
Oh, wow.
And there were a bunch of kids who had just lost a parent or a family member, and then just like we did like a little meet and greet after, and just seeing like their joy, and they like genuinely believe that they were there and like in that environment. And I just feel like art's really transformational for like you don't have to have like that deep of a backstory, but I think art can really affect you even if you're a kid and you're just looking to have fun. That can be really transformational to people who need it too. So yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked about doulaing. We've talked about arts and the wonderful scene we have here in Toronto and how more people need to go now and check it out. Anything else that really comes to mind that you want to scream from the mountains?
I think just don't be afraid of the doula if you're looking for extra support in your transition to parenthood. Like I think when it comes to dads, a lot of the time, people think that doulas and dads have to like compete in a weird way for like giving attention.
Like, duel it out.
Fun points awarded, absolutely. But I feel like a doula can really work together in that space. And like one of my favorite parts of my job is getting to support the partner through it and making sure that their minds are relaxed a bit so that they can be the support person for their partner. And then I can be the one that's taking the pictures and writing down all the notes and asking all the questions if they just want to be the one that's holding their partner's hand. And there's lots of really cool ways that you can work together. And if you have the resources, there's no shame in like bringing some extra support onto your team. If it's a doula or a house cleaner or whatever it is that makes your parenting journey a bit more relaxed, there's no shame in bringing on help. There's no parenting Olympics. Like you're not going to get a gold medal for not having slept for 4 days kind of thing. So do what you can to make it easier on yourself, and everyone's just doing their best. So there's no shame in that at all.
Everything you just said is very un-Torontonian. We pride ourselves on working ourselves to the bone and, you know, being sick for 3 weeks on end because we haven't slept for 3 weeks before that.
100%. Yeah. No, I see it all the time.
It's
People
horrible, yeah.
They're, if that's what you want to do, fine. Like, I'm not here to judge, but
you should.
But seeing, like, I see some people that are like, oh yeah, like I'm going to not take any parental leave. I'm going to work until I deliver my baby. And then I'm going to go right back to work after a week. And I'm like, I just feel people need to invest in themselves and say, I'm worth taking the time to recover and
you
take
will
it
regret
easy.
it 99% of the time.
100%.
Easily.
Easily see so many people have really terrible postpartum side effects that are because they're trying to do everything. And when we don't have that whole village community mindset, there's a lot of pressure to have to do everything, but you will make it worse for yourself by being burnt out. And asking for help is totally okay, be it with a professional resource or with your friends and family if they're able to be there. Like, get help when you can.
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's a difference between need and want. And it's, if you don't have to work literally to put food on the table and to pay rent because, you know, let's say EI won't be enough and whatnot, I know that there are situations in which there's like, there's no choice. And those are what I get. But if you're not in that situation and you just are looking for a certain degree of comfort or whatnot, and you're just kind of like, you know, there are things you feel like you can't do without, there are things you can totally do without. It's okay. You can like live like a year of like just spending some time with your kid and just, and for dads too, maybe not like a full year or whatever, but take the time. Like, honestly, I didn't take a ton of time. I took a month at the end of my first son's like first year, and I didn't get around to, I didn't take a leave for the second because Sarah and I agreed that she would take an extra 8 months after the first year to coincide with when our eldest son would go into junior kindergarten. Timing, you know, parents time things. That's how it works.
Logistics.
But I'm in a job where I'm able to get home at a good time to see them. I probably see my kids awake for a good 3 to 4 hours a day regularly. Like, I hang out with them a lot. I play with them a lot. I drop them off at school every day. I do the breakfast and all that kind of stuff. So I don't feel like I missed out because I've been able to be around and I don't have to rush off in the morning and just leave it all behind and, like, you know, see them only Saturdays and Sundays. So it's led to a very different kind of relationship with my kids. But I know most people are in the same situation and they feel like, you know, they have to keep on the hamster wheel to like just support the family and do everything. But even if you fall off that wheel, even if you change things up, even if, you know, things stop all of a sudden in the interim, you'll find something else. Things will work out somehow. People are coming in and out of jobs all the time. People are coming up with new ideas all the time. People are starting up their new businesses all the time. There's always something. You just have to kind of figure your way through it. And yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of free resources out there too. You know, I mean, I get that having to put dinner on the table is a lot of pressure. And I get that raising a kid is really expensive, especially in a city like Toronto. Right? Like, there's a lot of things that have a lot of weigh down anxiety on a lot of parents. But one of the other benefits of living in a city is that there's also a lot of free resources that the city provides or really cool nonprofits provide. And just being cool with yourself and saying it's okay to accept help when you need it, or not even when you need it, when you just want it. Like, that's okay too, you know? Like, if you, I don't know, if you want free diapers if you're not able to afford it, like, that's more of a need. But
I have a cleaning lady. You're preaching to the choir here. I'm just like, I don't have time to literally do my toilets anymore because life is just that busy.
100%. Yeah. I think when people are like making their like baby registries and stuff, they're always like, what type of onesie should I get and those kind of things. But
the one that fits.
Great. One that fits. But I always recommend asking for like a house cleaner gift card. Put that on your like baby registry. Like those kind of creative things are like parents are so appreciative and they don't realize. Or even like if you want to give a gift card or like a chef or something, have someone like bring you like those meal delivery kits or whatever, like those kind of things.
I need to do more of this.
Yeah.
This all sounds amazing.
Right? And there's like really great discount codes too for a lot of those meal delivery services. For like your first 6 weeks. Like just anything that you can do to like make it easier on yourself, like do it, like at no judgment at all. And I feel like a lot of people want to do it all and they burn themselves out. And take help, accept help, let yourself be okay with making it easier on yourself. It's just like the recipe for surviving as a parent.
I feel like there's a collaborative blog post coming up here because I try to do birth type things, like posts around my kids' birthdays. So I'll tap you for that one.
I love that.
100%.
Yeah, that would be great.
Cleaning gift certificates. I had never thought of that. That's a really good idea.
I think people, if they have a big network, they'll get a lot of those same baby gifts. But I think
you won't use 90% of them. It's bad.
100%. It's like a lot of waste too, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to get a lot of things that your baby will wear once and then they'll grow and like that kind of stuff, right?
For sure.
So I think gifts that have to do with lifestyle and making it a bit easier on a new parent is like always appreciated.
For sure.
Yeah, you can register for a doula if you want. Like that's cool too.
Things to know. All right, there's going to be some more work out of this. We'll get there.
Okay, I love it.
Well, cool. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. We've been chatting for 47 and a half minutes.
Time flies.
Good.
My goodness.
Like yes. All right. That means the job has been done well. Excellent. Where can we find you? Since I know you're talking about social media and whatnot, where are you? What are you doing out there? What are you putting out into the world? And where can we find you?
Yeah. So if you want to connect with me on Instagram or Twitter, my handle is at birthbossco, like CO. And I have a website. It's thebirthboss.com. My email and contact forms are all there. I love connecting with people on social media and having that kind of connection online because I think it like fosters a great community if you can't have it in person. So if you're someone who's outside of Toronto and you're looking for some support virtually, check me out on social media. And I also have a Pinterest page, which is just Birth Boss if you're into that. But yeah.
It's a world I could never get into, but I fully understand.
It's great for organizing recipes and stuff. I think it's a good tool.
Also, a world I'll never fully understand. I'm like, oh, look, meat, vegetables, heat.
I think you need to register for one of those meal kits now.
Sarah just kicks me out of the kitchen. She's just like, go take care of the other chores all over the house. I'm like, okay.
Divide and conquer is smart.
It's how we work. Definitely.
I love that. That's
all
great.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Rhiannon. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah. All right. And guys, make sure you check her out and to register for doulas and to give the new parents in your life all the support they need because even if they don't ask for it, they really, really need it. All right, guys. We'll chat later. Bye-bye. And that's it for this week's Chatting with Casey, where I want you to do better than I did and remember the difference between a doula and a midwife. One gets you ready for life with your baby, the other helps you start it. Or something like that. I think I got it. And of course, it was so good to chat with someone about Toronto's arts. It's something I hope more youth in this city can appreciate, even when it's not as sexy as some of our other options. But let me return you to your day. With only 49 days left in the year, there's plenty I've still yet to do, like share a ton of stories and declutter all the things from my dining room/office. But I hope you enjoy the week ahead, and we'll catch you on the next Chatting with Casey, where we talk escape rooms, anime, and why you don't need to advertise when your product is great. As always, if you liked what you heard, make sure to like, rate, share, and subscribe. And until the next, I remain Casey Palmer. See you next week. Bye-bye. Well, I feel like you're going down a path that I've seen a lot of women, like strong women I've met through. Okay, I'm going to restart this over. I'm not even going to cut it out of the edit. It's like you guys are just going to deal with my rambling in this entire recording.